It's a Thursday, July 2nd edition of PFT PM. Programming note, there will be no show on Friday. We're taking a day off. Sort of. I'll still be working. I get these weak moments before 3-day weekends in the summertime where I tell the PFT writing staff to go ahead and take the weekend off. And then after I do it, I realize that means I'm going to be working harder than usual, but that's okay. It's not really work, and I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to be sitting in the chair, watching soccer, and doing my thing, which, as Sims would say, consists of copy paste and snarky comments. So this is it. This is our last chance to talk, and there'll be some clips generated from this that you'll probably see all weekend long at the various posts that will be added to the never-ending, truly no days off for 21 years and counting of new content every day at profootballtalk.com. I hope you watched the soccer last night. I hope you didn't miss it. All the matches have been fun to watch, and I've watched as many as I can, even if what I have to do is shield myself from all media so that I can watch a game after it started or take a break 30 minutes in because I've got to do something else and then come back to it and keep watching it. I've, for the most part, managed to avoid spoilers, but last night was one of the rare occasions where I was able to lock into the whole thing start to finish from the moment it kicked off. And I almost missed the first hour because I didn't think it began until 9 Eastern. It started at 8 Eastern, got there just in time. And what a game it was. At Levi's Stadium, site of Super Bowl 60, doesn't even look and feel like an NFL stadium when the soccer pitch is down. First 45 minutes were kind of blah. Maybe our team was a little tight, favored to beat Bosnia and Herzegovina, advanced to the round of 16. Then came the goal in the 45th minute, right into stoppage time, or right on the line of 45 minutes by Flo Balogun. 1-0. When he got that red card, controversial, with replay review determining. And look, I'm just beginning to understand the rules, but apparently it's frowned upon to step on a guy's foot. And there's so many fouls and yellow cards and red cards that get awarded not based on, for instance, deliberately walking up to a guy and punching him in the face. But there's an obligation for the soccer player to play within the boundaries of control. It reminds me of the NFL's rule regarding hits on a defenseless player. How are you supposed to avoid that? You're trying to get the ball and limbs are going everywhere. How are they supposed to avoid so many of the things that result in fouls? And then you have the embellishments that are thrown on top of it with the flopping. Guys are always hitting the ground. Are they really hurt? Or are they just trying to sell it to get a foul, a yellow card, or a red card? But replay got involved and out went Balogun. He's also going to miss the next game. And that's when it got very interesting, because if you were watching it, I'll assume that you went through a period of, oh, well, it was fun while it lasted. There's no way. Down a man. Boy, wouldn't that be wild if they did that in football? If a player gets ejected, it's 11 against 10 for the rest of the game. 11 versus 10, 1 goal up, more than a half hour of play left. Went through a period where that's it. It's done. It's over. And then after about 5-7 minutes, I started to get the sense, and you did too, I believe, if you were watching it, maybe they can weather this storm. Then came the 82nd minute. I really am learning all the lingo. The 82nd minute. Malik Tillman from just outside the penalty area, having to get the ball up and over the wall of defenders and past the goalkeeper. And I remember as it was setting up, I'm thinking, boy, it would be something if he scored here, but it's not Lionel Messi making the kick. It's not Mbappe making the kick, but he nailed it. 2-0, and at that point, it's over. Now, there were a couple of close calls, and if they make it 2-1 with a few minutes left, who knows? We saw Belgium score 2 goals to force extra time against Senegal earlier in the day. So there were a couple of those where it's like, oh, that's almost in. Oh, that's going in. So it was fun. Start to finish, it was fun. And then I wore the West Virginia polo shirt today for a reason. The fact that they've adopted Take Me Home, Country Roads as their anthem, I want them to win it all just so I can hear that song in New Jersey while they hoist up the trophy. And the trophy is really kind of a unique and impressive thing. And I know that it's still a steep uphill climb. I've seen, yeah, you're going to have to beat France and you're going to have to beat this. Yeah, one match at a time. Next up, Belgium. And hopefully at Lumen Field in Seattle, Monday night, after 90 minutes plus stoppage time, hopefully not extra time. I don't know that I could handle watching 30 minutes of extra time in a U.S. match. I don't know that I could handle the penalty kicks, the shootout, if it happens. But Belgium is next, and hopefully we'll hear Country Roads coming from about as far away from West Virginia as you can get while still being in the contiguous 48 United States. And I think there's a pretty clear dotted line back to what the West Virginia baseball team did, getting to the College World Series, winning a couple of games there. The images that we saw on ESPN, I think that's probably how and why Country Roads ended up being the anthem for the U.S. men's soccer team. And I was telling the other PFT writers last night, you have to be from here. You have to have grown up here and lived here to understand what that song means to us. I mean, it's hard to talk about it without getting emotional because we're one of the states that everybody else wants to shit on. And I've lived from time to time in other states, most of my life right here in West Virginia, but even in Pittsburgh. And I always say, I don't understand this. We hate Pitt, but we love the Steelers, the Penguins, and the Pirates. But we hate Pitt. Well, that part's deserved. Go live in Pittsburgh for a while and tell them you're from West Virginia and wait for them to make their jokes. And it's the same thing elsewhere. When I was in college, I worked at the Chevron refinery in Northern California. Hell, a lot of the people don't even know West Virginia exists. You'll say, I'm from West Virginia, and they'll say, well, I've been to Virginia. Well, gee, thank you for telling me. So have I. I don't live there. So when you get a moment like this, it pulls everyone together in a way that is tangible but intangible, but it's palpable. And to have it be part of this effort by the U.S. men's team to climb the ladder all the way to the top, I want them to keep winning. I would have wanted them to keep winning if they had any other song. But the fact that Country Roads is the song that plays after they win, and to hear and see it all happen, keep going. Keep going. And if they pull it off, they need to come to West Virginia. I think they already need to come, even if they should lose in the round of 16. I think there's already a connection with this team. I think they need to come. I think they need to visit. Some of them may decide to live here. See, that's the thing. A lot of the people in the other states that will look down their noses at West Virginia haven't been here. And my attitude always is, let's keep it that way. Like, I don't want to get too many people here, but I guess it would be good for the tax base. So I'll reluctantly support it. All right. Can't wait for Monday night, though. But I'll be watching there are 3 matches tonight. There's one that starts at 11 p.m. from Vancouver. I'll probably stay up and watch all of it. There was development yesterday in the Terrion Arnold case. Well, there were 2. One, Terrion Arnold was officially released by the Detroit Lions. Technically, he was waived. All other teams have until Monday, July 6, 4 p.m. Eastern to make a waivers claim. I would be surprised if anyone does, because you end up standing in the shoes of the Lions for the balance of his 4-year fully guaranteed contract as a first-round pick in 2024. The other development was, in the context of an effort by the prosecution, now that he's not employed by the Lions or any other NFL team, to revise the terms of his release pending trial. He's on home confinement. The judge reluctantly agreed not to require that he wear an ankle monitor. Well, now that he's not employed by an NFL team, the prosecution has gone back for another bite at the apple. And the argument's going to be, hey, if he's not playing football, he should have to wear the ankle monitor like everybody else who's on home confinement. In responding to the prosecution's renewed motion, Harvey Steinberg, who did a great job on Monday getting bond to be authorized for Terrion Arnold, he made a couple of claims. One, he said that 3 teams have already contacted Terrion Arnold. And he also said that Arnold expects to have a new NFL team within 30 days. Now, look, you could say this is just the lawyer doing what the lawyer needs to do to help achieve this small victory for his client, to not be required to wear an ankle monitor while he's on home confinement. And anytime I hear a claim that 2, 3, 5 teams, whatever, are interested in a player, usually that's something that's leaked by the agent to an insider who has the phone at the ready to tweet it. And there are some in league circles who are skeptical of that. Without identifying a specific team or teams, anyone can say that. Harvey Steinberg's an officer of the court, and there are certain requirements that apply to any document that is signed by a lawyer and submitted to the court. There has to be a good faith basis that what he's saying is accurate. I won't be surprised if come Monday morning, when this hearing happens, the judge says, Mr. Steinberg, who are the 3 teams? And do you have any documentation of their interest? And the other wrinkle that I'm not sure the court understands is the very real possibility that even if Arnold is on a roster, he'll be placed on paid leave by the NFL pending trial, which would eliminate the argument for the removal of the monitoring device. If the judge asks Harvey Steinberg about paid leave, commissioner exempt list, I'll know the judge is fully up to speed on the realities of what Arnold is facing with respect to what the league can do. And my informed suspicion, and it's not informed by knowing what the league has said to the Lions or what the Lions have said to the league, but others in the league have articulated the notion that there's no way the Lions release Terrion Arnold without some sort of communication or coordination with the league office. That stuff happens all the time. When a team finds itself in a unique situation that has potential risks, costs and benefits to various options, you talk to the league. And would it be a surprise to learn that the league said something to the Lions that caused them to believe that he's going to be placed on paid leave, and that influenced the decision to release him? That wouldn't surprise me at all. And if there is a sense he's going to be placed on paid leave, that makes it less likely that another team would claim him on waivers or sign him. Why am I going to sign a guy who's going to be put on paid leave? Now, I guess a team could sign him, he gets put on paid leave, and then you just release him. But if you claim him on waivers and you step into that contract and it's guaranteed for skill, injury, and cap, and if you're a team that claims him on waivers, you can't use the argument the Lions may have used, which, and as we said the other day, it goes back to 2020 when the Ravens released Earl Thomas for personal conduct that adversely affected the Ravens, that's a way around the full guarantee, because it's not a full guarantee. It's a guarantee for skill, injury, and cap. There's another way to eliminate a player's contract without owing him. If you're the new team that claims him on waivers, he hasn't done anything to you. You're taking him knowing the allegations, knowing what the circumstance is. So Monday morning, I'll be dialed into YouTube. They streamed the last hearing. I hope they stream this one. I want to see what Steinberg has to say, and I want to see what the judge has to say to Steinberg on this question of whether and to what extent three teams are interested and why Terrion Arnold expects to be on another team within 30 days. And look, the response to this is fairly simple if you're the judge. You wear the monitor until you're on a team. And if you're on a team, we'll take the monitor off. But until you're on a team, you're on the same rules that everyone else is on. And if you're on a team and you get put on paid leave, then the monitor goes back on. So it's fairly simple. It should be simple. We'll see how simple or complicated it is come Monday. On Wednesday, there was a verdict in the case against Blaze Taylor. Now, on the surface, you'll say, who was Blaze Taylor? Well, he was a scout for the Titans from 2021 to 2023. And we had a post back in 24 when he was first arrested and charged with murder. But when I saw that the trial had begun, I hadn't remembered that. I had to go look it up. It's like, hey, there's our story. I wrote it. Look at that. The trial went on for 7 days. They worked through the weekend. They had testimony on Saturday. I think the judge wanted to get this thing done before the 4th of July, and they did. Jury convicted Blaze Taylor of 2 counts of murder, actually 4 total counts. Second-degree murder of his girlfriend, first-degree murder of their unborn child, and then 2 counts of felony murder, which is murder that occurs while committing a felony. Prosecutors contend that he poisoned her pink lemonade by lacing it with lethal amounts of cocaine. The jury found, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Taylor did it. He chose not to testify, as most criminal defendants do, but there was still enough evidence to overcome any and all reasonable doubt. Last night, his lawyer issued a statement that Blaze Taylor will appeal. Why wouldn't you appeal? But you have to have something. You have to be able to point to something. There has to be a mistake the judge made. There has to be evidence of misconduct by the prosecutor. That case in South Carolina, that weird murder case where the conviction was overturned because the clerk of the court was supposedly putting ideas in the jury's mind. The defendant gets a new trial in that case because of that form of misconduct. So you got to have something. You can't just say, please. You've got to be able to articulate specific errors or misconduct that would justify a new trial. And why wouldn't you try? That's one of the things you do when you're a criminal defense lawyer. After the verdict, you pore over your notes, you pore over the transcript, you try to find anything that you can use to try to get an appeals court to give you a new trial. Until then, Blaze Taylor will be incarcerated, and until then, the official word on whether or not he murdered his pregnant girlfriend and their child is he did it. And it really is a stunning level of depravity to go to that extreme. Not unprecedented. Remember Ray Caruth? It's not unprecedented. As we continue our tour of the criminal docket, it really is a wild time in the NFL. There had been a long time where there hadn't been any criminal cases, significant criminal cases involving NFL figures. The trial against Mark Sanchez is set to begin on July 13. It has not been continued again. The trial date had been delayed multiple times, at least 4 times. It was originally set for December. There's no way it's going to happen by December. And it kept getting bumped and bumped and bumped. Most recently, it was bumped from June, I believe, to July 13. And we are less than a week away from the final pretrial conference. That's when all the parties get together and they go over all the stuff they need to go over, setting the stage for the trial to come. Trial starts Monday, July 13. Sanchez facing up to 6 years, at least 1 felony charge for battery. He got into that fight with a 69-year-old truck driver in an alley in Indianapolis. while Sanchez was in town to call a Raiders-Colts game last year. Remember when it first came out, Sanchez got stabbed. Everybody thought he was the victim of a crime. He ends up being charged criminally. The truck driver doesn't. Why? Because the authorities believe the truck driver was acting in self-defense. It's easy to sell when you're 69 years old and a former professional athlete in his mid-30s was the other party to the incident. I doubt that there are many 69-year-old truck drivers who are going around picking fights with former professional athletes who are still in their 30s. So there's always a chance of a plea deal. And I'll be somewhat surprised if the case does go to trial. I think the evidence is sufficiently clear that Sanchez would be wise to work out a deal. Now, sometimes the evidence is so clear, the prosecution doesn't want to do a deal. Why should we? We had an item recently. There are more than 50 different clips from public surveillance cameras that are going to be used to paint this picture and show what happened. Sanchez should take a deal. If I'm the prosecutor, I don't know that I want to do a deal. And it could be that the prosecutor, encouraged by the strength of the case, wants too much from Sanchez's perspective. At a certain point, let's just roll the dice. Maybe we get lucky. Maybe we get a jury that is either hung or we get an acquittal or something happens that avoids the worst case scenario. But it's never looked good for Sanchez from the moment that the facts became publicly available and the allegations became clear. So that's coming, and we'll be all over that one. That's one that I will watch gavel to gavel and update continuously. I mean, it falls right into the wheelhouse of my former life, but it's also incredibly interesting. You don't get to see a lot of these trials. Federal trials are never televised. State by state, it differs. In Indiana, the judge has discretion, and the judge decided to allow the case to be televised. Next up, still waiting for The Athletic to issue its report of its internal investigation regarding former senior NFL insider Diana Rossini. Ryan Glass-Beagle of Front Office Sports reported on Wednesday that Jonathan Jones of CBS is in advanced talks to leave CBS for The Athletic. Jones has been at CBS since 2019. I think he replaced Jason La Canfora there. And from 2019 through 2024, he was part of the NFL Today. He would do a segment, an insider segment, a news segment. That stopped in 2025. And hardly anyone noticed. Just stopped. It just ended. He's still contributing to the website. He's broken some stories that we've acknowledged at PFT. He contributes to their streaming platform that covers the NFL and all of the sports, but now he could be at The Athletic. And my first thought was, hey, there's the new senior NFL insider at The Athletic. But Glass-Beagle reports that his job would be more along the lines of features and behind-the-scenes information. And it keeps bringing me back to this fundamental question of whether any publication that has ridiculously high standards for its journalists can have an insider. Because I don't think the way the insider job has evolved, I don't think it's possible to be a high-end, competitive, effective insider and satisfy the exacting standards of journalism that a place like the New York Times will impose on all of its reporters. Beyond that, would you really want to be the next insider at The Athletic? Everything you do is going to be scrutinized. Every report. It's just the nature of the circumstance. How will it not be the subject of speculation and discussion and scrutiny? So it won't surprise me if they just don't have an NFL insider in that title, that they don't have somebody who is there to tweet out the drip, drip, drip of transactions. I don't know if I said this here yesterday, if I said it on a radio appearance, I just don't remember. But To get to the front of the line for the transactional information, the stuff that's going to be announced anyway, think about it. If you're a team, if you're an agent, got a new contract with a player, we can just keep it quiet and announce it, and that happens sometimes. Or we can help one of the insiders. We can give it to the insider early, and then 5 minutes later we can announce it. To get to the front of that line, and I'm choosing my words carefully because I know it's going to piss off the people who are insiders, but the shoe fits. To get to the front of the line, you've already, to some degree, compromised your journalistic integrity. You can't get to the front of the line and stay there if you're not willing to do things that the highest possible journalistic standards would say you shouldn't do. And it starts with the way the relationships are cultivated. You're going to look the other way for your sources. You're going to possibly go out of your way to promote your sources by posting on Twitter that one of your best sources, an agent, has been hired by some new client, something that maybe 0.05% of a massive Twitter following would give a crap about. You have to pass along information that may be inaccurate. We talk about that all the time. The initial contract numbers, how often are they inaccurate? The people at the front of the line don't ask questions. That's why I'm no longer at the front of the line. I wanted to ask questions. And when you ask questions, you know what happens? The other people beat you in the thumb race to Twitter. So the job itself, as it currently exists, true high-end, high-earning NFL insider does not mesh with the highest levels of journalistic ethics and practice. It just doesn't. It doesn't. And if any of the people who have those jobs don't like it, you know how to find me. We can have the discussion. We can have it publicly if you want. Come on the show and we'll talk about it. See, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want the underbelly to be discussed. And that is the biggest risk, I think, and the biggest fear that a lot of them have as it relates to the Rossini situation. They don't want people looking more closely at what they do. All right, let's take a few questions before we wrap this up. Kristen, give us the first one. Our good friend Tom Marshall from the other side of the Atlantic goes by the handle of ARedZona UK on Twitter. It only took me about 8 years to understand how that should properly be pronounced. It was ARedZone ALK for a long time. He's a big Cardinals fan. Sorry, Tom, I don't know. Tom, they should be sending you stuff. They should be sending you swag. You should be the official Cardinals ambassador to the UK, the only Cardinals fan in the UK. Will Jalen Hurts still be running his style of offense in 2026? That question arises from, I assume, the Derek Gunn report from November, that the fundamental problem with the Eagles is that Jalen Hurts, when push came to shove, would play his game. They call the play, he runs the play the way he wants. People were frustrated, and there wasn't anything the Eagles could do about it because of his contract, because of the guarantees, and because of the structure. Significant salary cap consequences if you trade or cut a Jalen Hurts. And for the money you're paying him, you're not going to bench him. Well, I think with the new offensive coordinator, Sean Mannion, and with Hurts now in the last guaranteed year of his contract, I think the circumstances have changed. I think now he's got less leverage. Now the Eagles have more freedom to maybe do something about it. Would they bench him for Andy Dalton? I don't know. But I think there's a higher degree of expectation. And I suspect through all of the scrutiny and the discussion, because the conversation did shift last year, all the people who used to yell and scream at Chris Sims when he was pointing out the flaws he noticed from studying film in Jalen Hurts' game got very quiet and or loud in their agreement that Hurts may be the problem. So I think Hurts has gotten the message. And remember the leak, the story? It landed perfectly. It felt coordinated by the Eagles. The long ESPN conversation that took a closer look at Jalen Hurts' role in the offense and his role in the struggles of the team. It came out just after everybody left Arizona. So Nick Sirianni wasn't there. Howie Roseman wasn't there. Jeffrey Lurie wasn't there. Big Dom wasn't there. There was no one to be asked questions about it. Once we went wheels up from the league meetings back to Philly, that's when the story landed. I don't think that was an accident. I think it was a message that was sent, and they used the media to do it. And I think I saw someone report that basically the message has been received. So we'll see. Next up, from Corey Denius, how much cap space did the Browns save due to the insurance policy on Deshaun Watson for him missing the entire 2025 season? I don't know the specific answer, but it has to be significant. They had a policy that pays out millions if he suffers an injury that keeps him from playing. And this isn't something that teams advertise. It isn't something that gets filed with the NFLPA. It's a number that I'm going to have to go out and construct. So, Corey, I don't have the answer for you now, but it's on my list of things to explore. What was the ultimate bottom line savings as a practical matter for the Cleveland Browns in cash and cap space? And remember, the way they'd structured his contract, and this is one of the reasons he's still on the team, the 5-year fully guaranteed contract, $46 million a year. They have kicked the can and kicked the can and kicked the can, going with the smallest possible cap hits in the early years. They've got some big cap charges still left. Last year's insurance payments and the cap credits from those will help make it easier as the Browns move into the non-Deshaun Watson cap years that are coming up in 2027, 2028. I think they've smoothed it all the way out to 2029. And hey, if he starts this year and he plays well, who knows? Maybe he'll do a new contract come 2027. And when you're talking about the leftover cap charges for a franchise quarterback's contract, it's more manageable if you keep him. You can better engineer the cap charges by doing a new contract with the player. So that's actually a factor that works in his favor if he plays well enough this year that he's the guy beyond 2026. So it's on my list. It's worth talking about. And it's going to take me a little time, I think, to come up with something specific. But it has been a benefit. It was one of the things in the contract. And the fact that he had the torn Achilles tendon and didn't play at all last year, that does help the Browns financially. All right, next up. From 88. If the league moves to an 18-game season, is there any chance every team would get a second bye week placed in the middle of the season around week 9? I interpret that to mean, and I've had this question before, and I've seen this point raised, a week where everyone is off. The league would never do that. They're never going to shut the sport down for the season in the middle of the season, not for the season, but for any point of the season in a season. You just stagger the buys. And 1993 was the only year where the NFL had 2 bye weeks in a 16-game season. And the networks hated that because it diluted the weekly schedules. And that was when we only had 2 primetime windows, Sunday night and Monday night. Now you got Thursday night. And now you got all these other windows they're trying to create. A Wednesday here, a Saturday there. If you build a second bye week into an 18-game schedule, even without shutting it down for a week, it's going to potentially dilute the quality of each week's slate of games. The difference, though, is 1993, there were 28 teams in the NFL. Today, there are 32. And another way to offset the realities of 2 bye weeks, add more teams. I just feel like it's a matter of time before we hear they really are looking at adding teams, because I think they will. One of these days, they're going to add more teams. This is the longest stretch the NFL has ever been involved in without a new team. Think about that. There hasn't been a new team since the Texans in 2002. That's 24 years without a new team, without an expansion team. That stretch of time has never happened before for the NFL. All right, got a couple more. From Zozo, I think it's very realistic for Washington to go after Mike Tomlin. How good does Washington have to be this year? Dan Quinn hasn't won the division. The team got old and injured. Expectations were high. Got old and injured. I'm sorry. I need to add my own punctuation there. Got old and injured, comma. Expectations were high, but weren't met. Also, Adam Peters, to me, hasn't been the wizard we thought he was. Are there hot seats in D.C.? I did a podcast with Ben Standig yesterday, who covers the Commanders. And if there's another 5-12 season, how do you not, at a minimum, change coaches? I saw someone who reported recently that Dan Quinn's on the hot seat and made a big stir. Well, how can he not be after last year? The worst thing you can do in your first year with the team is have some massive, incredible experience and outdo your expectations. The next year, you're set up for failure. The next year, you got a high bar. 5-12 looks very bad in year 2, and I think it puts pressure on everyone in year 3. All right, I got to run. Let me say one thing before I go. And this is important because it happens every year. Be careful with the fireworks. It's not worth it to lose a finger. It's not worth it to lose an eye. It's not worth it to lose your life. And every year we're going to see some story about some moron who got drunk and tried to fire off a mortar from the top of his head, and it took his head off. Or we're going to find a story about somebody who blew off fingers. Those injuries are permanent. I wanted to say the F word there. Don't mess around with fireworks. And if you do, follow the instructions. They're very simple. They're simpler than the instructions on the back of a bottle of shampoo. Lather, rinse, and repeat. It's even simpler than that. There's only 2. Light fuse, get away. Come on, people. It's not worth it. Cost-benefit analysis. Is it worth that to lose a finger? To do something cool that's going to impress your friends? Don't do it. Be careful. Keep your fingers. Keep your eyes. Keep your life. Have a safe and happy 4th of July weekend. We'll see you Monday. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.